Welcome back to the Authenticity Calling podcast. I am your host, Aralitza Spasova. Thank you so much for being here. And today we're joined by co-author of Beyond Coincidence, Maria Cook. Welcome to the show, Maria.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be here.
Oh, it's so good to connect with you. And we just had a conversation on the fireside chats about the chapter. So I really hope everyone that's listening right now is also able to hear that conversation. But for those who don't have a chance to or can't find it because sometimes it get lost in the meta ether, why don't we just circle back? And if you don't mind, Maria, telling the audience a little bit about yourself and what exactly you do. And the purpose of this podcast is really to help people to see that there is so much more available to them once they open up to the possibilities and once they open up to really trusting their intuitive calling and purpose. And I know you talk about that full body yes in your chapter, so I'm so excited for you to share your perspective and just some takeaways from the chapter and just your life in general. So before I get too carried away, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, well, thank you, Relitza. Yeah, I love listening to you because it's just important to me, this whole concept of synchronicities and people being able to listen to their intuition and get a sense of their purpose and to take the steps to really become all they're meant to become and do what they're meant called here to do. And I know that, there's a lot of obstacles and challenges and there's inner voices that hold us back. So
Yeah.
it's been my path to find ways to overcome that and be able to be myself fully. I've been able to become an acupuncturist, and I have a private practice here that is very fulfilling. And I work with all kinds of people in all kinds of conditions.
Yeah.
And I've set it up so that I can take frequent breaks. And I have a lot of adventures and travels and things that I do. And one of the things I love is I take women on adventure journeys for empowerment and transformation. And we've visited Mexico and Belize and worked with indigenous healers. And I've done kayaking trips here in Puget Sound and also in Belize. So we do a lot of exploring and we use adventure as a tool for personal growth, so like a rite of passage, where we can
Wow.
face an obstacle and a challenge and then realize if we can do this, well, we can do anything. So it's
Wow.
really helpful to expand what we consider to be possible.
Wow,
And
that's so
I just love
beautiful.
it. And working with, thank you.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. I know the internet's a little choppy. I'm just going to turn off my camera so we don't interrupt each other again. But go on. Sorry.
No, not at all. Yeah, I've been really blessed to work with indigenous healers, which is a wonderful thing, kind of keepers of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been very inspiring for me, just to recognize that there's a rootedness in wisdom that we can access and participate together. Because I think ritual and ceremony and gratitude is a big part of our own personal journey toward empowerment. Recognizing that we really have a miracle being alive here in this planet, and to really
Absolutely.
cherish the opportunity. So I've been a student of energy medicine. Acupuncture, of course, is a kind of energy medicine, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of other modalities that can really help us to change our inner landscape so that we can affect our outer circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think, it's really try to live sort of in alignment, with what we're meant to be doing and who we are and what our passions and deepest dreams are, and how to come into alignment with all that, as well as what the planet needs, how we can be good stewards in
Mm-hmm.
this time we have here. So I
Mm-hmm.
to work with people on all of those ideas, and there's so much wisdom available to us. And I'm really looking forward to reading the book because I know all the other authors have so much to offer,
Yeah.
and that'll be jam packed with wisdom and ideas.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're totally right. And it's Serendipitous, of course, synchronistic. When I hear you talking about, learning about indigenous medicines and really being a steward of the land, that's something that's really strongly calling me. It has been for quite some time. And so, yeah, I'm really interested to learn more. Maybe after the podcast, we can chat about what that might look like because I would love to take part in your program and yeah, just to really, lead that life of opening up to what's possible through adventure because I think a calling for a lot of people in general, but I think especially women, is that, our responsibilities are more important than our desires, or, we have to put our adventurous self on the shelf, basically, when we become mothers or when we become, corporate working women or whatever that looks like for some people. And I find that so often, we only get so much time for vacation if we do have that sort of 9 to 5 career. And I think a lot of people, they have guilt around not taking it with their family. And so a lot of vacation time is still spent taking care of the family. So a lot of women really truly never get a break to go and explore and have this amazing adventure that you offer in your retreats. And it's not just an adventure, it's a personal transformation. So that to me is absolutely priceless.
Yeah, it really is. And it is a challenge to make that space at certain times of your life for sure. And it's a wonderful thing when you can do it. And I like to also offer online classes, and we've done online retreats and
Mm.
online courses because sometimes we can't get that week away, or we
Yeah,
can't do an international trip, or we can't even like you say, the family and the responsibilities, and there's other priorities at any given time. But just to create some space
yeah,
and some way of bringing in more empowerment, more stepping back and realizing what's important, because we're so often just caught up in our to-do list where we can't even
absolutely.
recognize that there is more going on, and that things could be, we could move easier through our chores and our have to do's if we kind of learn how to align ourselves with a larger picture and just take the
Absolutely.
time to kind of work with that. So that's been really important to me to realize, oh, we have to reach everybody just where they're at. And
Hmm.
I know for myself, I had a lot of years as a single parent, so I just did what I could and
Hmm.
took the time that I could get. And there's a lot that you can happen just if you're open to the information, to the
Hmm.
connections, and to doing the work.
Yeah, yeah, that really, really resonates with me. And you know what? Something I think permission is a big thing for women, and myself as a single parent, I can say I have a 9-year-old son, and we are so productive. I don't like to use the word busy anymore, even though it comes out once in a while, but we are so productive running from, lacrosse practice and soccer practice and games and swimming and all the different things that there really isn't a beat. I call myself a moober, a mommy Uber, because that's like my third job, and there's just there truly, if we don't prioritize it, it will not happen. And I think it's really important to highlight as humans, as people, I think, but especially as women and especially as mothers, and even, more narrowed single mothers, because I think there's this element of you always have to be there and you always have to be on. And especially if you don't have shared custody, it's like, taking time for yourself is probably the most selfless thing that you can do, because when you're running on fumes for your child, when you're running on fumes for your career, you're not actually fully present. They're only getting like a little tiny sliver of you. And when actually we take that time away, when we prioritize self care, there are friends, there are acquaintances, there are family members, there are activities and camps and all these different things that our kids could take part in so that we can actually take the time away. And so I just want to highlight that element, even just that vision, even just that idea, that imagination of what would life be like if you did take a week away and you did something like this for yourself, but even for your children, the way you show up in your career, like all the things, you could completely transform your life from making that time and space, and many people do. I know I did. And so I just want to plug that in and encourage that. I think it's wonderful that you offer programs as an alternative, but I just really want to take this opportunity to for the women that are listening, for the people actually that are listening, because I know there's single parents who are dads, you know, there's parents who are not single, but they have so much going on that they don't
Yeah.
take time away for themselves. So
Isn't
and
that the
people who are
truth?
not parents, you know, everybody.
I know it's very, we're just not taught to prioritize ourselves. We're sort of brought up to feel we can be endlessly doing, endlessly giving, and that we should be as productive and outwardly focused as possible,
That's
to be
right.
good citizens of the world. And
That's
we're
right.
never taught to have to fill ourselves up so that we can overflow and not be drained.
That's
And you're
right.
absolutely right. People just run on fumes, and we're missing the quality of life that is so important to be sharing with those we love and
That's right.
modeling good self-care. That's something that we want to teach our children, teach the people that we care about. How do you take care of yourself and fill yourself up? Well, it's not something we can share if we don't practice it ourselves.
That's right.
So we have to kind of get into this ability to look beyond our programming, beyond our, story we tell ourselves. Oh, I can't afford to do that, or oh, I'm needed here. Oh, that would be selfish, or all those things,
Mhm.
and realize, no, this is so important to tend to yourself, to give yourselves the space and time to fill up, to transform, to gain the tools and the perspective so that you can become more of who you're meant to be and have the impact that you're meant to have and share that with the people that you love. It's everything.
Mm. Mm, you're absolutely right. And you know, the word vitality comes to mind. That is truly being in your life, is taking that time, really truly being who, as you said, you're meant to be, not this shell of a human. And that touches on a little bit of my book as I literally use the terms. I felt like a shell of who I was supposed to be the moment that I caught myself spinning in doing all the things right, but not feeling fulfilled. And even though I was living my purpose, there was that level of self-rejection and that level of, really not being in my life. I was doing the things, but I was not being. Like when we talk about being. It's that divine, feminine, beautiful energy that we all have in us. But because we live in such a productive world, we're so stuck in that masculine overdrive, that energy
Uh,
of doing, that it is of utmost importance. And I think when you're on an adventure, like kayaking, like you mentioned, the adventures that you take women on, you don't have a choice because if you're not present, you might
yeah,
not survive.
I know it really, really helps to put yourself in situations where you really are in the moment, because it's a skill we need to have, and to be calm and scaled down so that you are just attending to what is right in front of you and not
Mhm.
all worried about the future, or regretting about the past, or dealing with those a lot of extraneous things, but just being able to calm your nervous system down so that you're quietly aware of where you are, who you are, and then you can kind of open to this deeper wisdom and discern better, because we're
Mm.
just sort of cluttered up. We're cluttered
Yeah,
up with things that we need, things that we're supposed to need, or things we're supposed to do, or things we're supposed to want.
that's
And
right.
really, they may not be what's really important. Very
That's
often
right.
they're not. And we have to be able to settle down, be in the moment, calm our nervous system, can kind of open to the present, and listen to that quiet place where what was really important can emerge. And if we don't give ourselves that space, but we just keep running on our to-do list from one thing to another, even though they can be really wonderful things, and like you say, they can be in alignment with our purpose, but
Mhm.
it just can all be too much if we don't really take the time to step out, yeah, of our doing, and step into
Mhm.
being.
Yeah. Yeah, that is so beautiful. So, Maria, do you mind sharing a little bit about your chapter? Because you talked about your purpose, and I know on the other conversation you talked about what that even looks like for people so that they recognize, oh, maybe this is part of my purpose. Can you tell us a little bit about the chapter?
Sure. Yeah, I share a couple of experiences. I I had a period of time in my life where I was very stuck and uncertain of what to do and didn't feel that there was any possibility of becoming unstuck, you know? It just
Mm,
couldn't see my way forward.
mhm,
I was unfulfilled in my work. I was underpaid. I was held back financially. I was had time constraints as a single parent, and
mhm,
I just was really unhappy. I was looking for answers, but everything that came up, I had a reason why it wouldn't work. And
mhm,
so I write about this experience of just taking a walk with a friend. And he started talking about how he was going to go to acupuncture school to create a retirement career for himself.
mhm,
And I said, "Oh my gosh, you're going to love that. That is such a great idea. All the acupuncturists I know love their work. It's fascinating. It's so interesting. You're going to have a wonderful time. And it can be really lucrative. I know it'll support you so well. Oh, I think it's just, and I went on and on and on to him. So when I got home, I had to go, Maria, you're, if it's so great for him, why don't you look into it yourself? Because I had always been interested in alternative healing but I always felt that the schooling would be prohibitive for a single parent without financial resources. But
mm,
because he had been so enthusiastic, I decided, well, let me just look. And I found a
mm.
school that I could go to while I was working that had weekend programs, and their tuition was
Wow.
affordable. And
Wow.
I was enrolled in 3 months and starting my
Wow.
career path, which
So
turned out to be just so perfect.
yeah, and I just want to slow us down and just take us back because to me, storytelling is everything. And I'm sure people are listening to this and hearing themselves in your experience, but I want to highlight one important thing that you did that a lot of us don't do. In that moment, you recognized your passion for this thing. You were so full body yes about it for someone else that
Yeah,
you
exactly.
recognized, wait a second, this is something that actually I am passionate about. This is something that's calling me. And you
Exactly.
took the step to look into it, and that
Right.
that is that divine masculine when essence when our essence recognizes, "Oh, this feels juicy and alive and expansive and exciting, like, I'm yes, let's do this." A lot of people stop there.
Exactly.
A lot of people
Right.
start with the stories and the limiting beliefs and, like you said, all the reasons why not, but the truth is, if you allow the universe to prove to you, you can even be bold enough to say, "You know what, universe, if this is really meant for me, prove it to me." The fact that you
Yeah,
took a look at what the courses look like instead of just
exactly.
assuming that, "Oh, I can never do this," you actually looked, and sure enough, there was a path and a way. So I want to encourage everybody here. If you've ever had a full body yes about something, especially if you believe that it's not for you for all the reasons that you could make up in your limited mind,
Right.
that's okay. Look for it anyways. Try to find a way to make it possible because I promise you, if it is your purpose, it will happen so quickly and easily. It just takes that one step in the right direction, and that's
That
where
is so
synchronicities
true.
start. Like,
Yeah,
that is the key, what you just said, Maria. Thank you for sharing that.
exactly. That is so true. Thank you for summarizing in
Yeah.
that way, because that is really it. It's just being able to look beyond those limits that have held you
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Well, so what if it were possible?
Yeah.
And realizing that, you really want it. Well, maybe it's possible. And
Absolutely.
yeah, it's just I am so, so, so grateful. I'm so grateful that I, felt the yes, that I followed up, that I took that walk, had that conversation, that I listened to myself.
Yes. And it
That I
started with a walk. It started with prioritizing your self-care, which is so interesting because that even is the universe saying, "Good for you, Maria. I'm so proud of you that you finally took a little time to yourself to take a walk.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's a gift. Here's a calling." I love it.
I know. Yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I'm really, really curious, just to steer a little bit away from the book. I'm really curious about your learnings with Indigenous medicine, and especially coming from sort of, I guess, acupuncture is considered Eastern medicine. Um, how do you relate it, or how does it compare? Or what are your learnings or your takeaways? What's similar? What's different? Is it a totally on a, you know, a completely different level or path. What does that look like for you? What are your learnings there? I'm so curious.
Let me tell you about that. I love to talk about it because it's a passion for me. Um, well, one of my first experiences, or one of my more powerful experiences, was visiting Mexico and spending time with some curanderas there who really, we were doing sort of a global exchange with other acupuncturists. And we were learning from the curanderas who teach the traditional Mexican indigenous healing approach.
Mm,
And we were learning from them and then sharing our medicine. And what was very clear and surprising to me is that these medicines are very related. Like in Chinese medicine, we have five elements, and we have a sense that emotions are associated with different organ systems. It's very elegant,
mm,
beautiful system, and it's highly sophisticated, but also very simple.
mm,
Well, in this indigenous medicine, which is less sophisticated, it's all handed down verbally from a grandparent to child, and there's no texts or written work, but they also have a system of elements. They use four, but
mm,
the organ systems and the emotions are exactly the same. You know,
mhm,
fear is held in the kidneys, and anger is held in the liver, grief is in the lungs, and joy or lack of joy comes from the heart. And they have the same approach to healing, which is mind, body, spirit.
mm,
Now, in indigenous medicine, they use different tools. They use a whole egg and certain herbs, and they have various approaches to shift the energy of their patient. And in acupuncture, we use needles or herbs or cupping. But really, it's very has a very similar basis, which is we're working on the energetic system and asking the person to try something else,
mm,
try a different pattern, let go of that response, and let's
mm,
do a different way. You don't
mm,
have to be tense. You don't have to be refilled. You can
mm,
release your anger. And speaking to that whole system that
mm,
incorporates the body, the mind, and the spirit. So I was really enthralled, and I realized that acupuncture is also indigenous medicine. It is handed down. It is comes from nature. It is based on natural rhythms and cycles, and it's
absolutely.
just become very sophisticated because it's been around for so many thousands of years, and we have it written, and learned doctors have contributed new ideas, and it's evolved a lot. But it also, it's based on nature. So I call it. One of my teachers calls these perennial medicines, and
Mm,
they just last. So that it was very similar. And
wow.
the indigenous healers are, because they don't have the formality of advanced study, but learned in the field, with the herbs and the flowers, and working with patients. Very often, people have learned from their grandparents. That is
Mhm,
how indigenous medicine has continued. It's very interesting.
mhm,
So they are very hands on, and often incorporate ritual and ceremony into their work, which I really appreciate because it brings in the power of the unknown, which
mm,
is very valuable. And too often, the influence of Western medicine is to forget that because
mhm.
they would rather deal with the known,
Yeah.
what you can see when you do an autopsy. But there's so much beyond what we can see or experience with our senses that actually can really help us and assist us. We can call on our ancestors. We can, speak to the energy within us, the chi, the vitality that we can't really see, but that keeps us alive and can be blocked or burdened by past trauma.
Mhm,
So I really appreciate that, and in my own way, I kind of add that into my work. Just not necessarily sharing that with my acupuncture patients, sort of doing it discreetly. I
mm,
just ask that all guidance and help be present, and that I be a container and a vehicle, a vessel for information, wisdom, and healing to flow through, so that I can have the greatest impact for the greatest good.
Beautiful. And that is something that I love to remind everyone that I work with. Any kind of prayer or meditation or honoring of, a calling, or even, praying on food, praying together for someone, always to remember for the greatest good of all concerned, because we don't sometimes know what we're going to channel. And a lot of times when we ask for something, we do ask out of our ego, and the ego unfortunately is subject to, kind of all of the sins if we're going to go down that path. And that's not an energetic place. That's actually, it has to come back to equilibrium. And it's usually not in a way that we want it. And we just don't know what we're even asking for. So just to make sure that it's grounded in that unity, in that, collective good for the
Yes,
greatest good of all concerned, it is so important. Thank you for sharing
really is. Just realize a lot of it is just a mystery, and
that. Hmm.
we just want to be present and do the best we can and not really kind of surrender to it, so that we're not using our need to control, or like you say, our ego, or
Yeah.
our having to be the best or be perfect, or all those things that can get in the way of actually being fully present and contributing our gift.
That's right. That's right. So I love that everything you said. I'm like, I wish we could probably talk for like months and years
I
about
know.
this topic, because I have so many questions for you.
I know.
But I think if I could, it's interesting if I could wrap it up. So I don't know if you know about my background is in medicine, in Western medicine. I graduated, and then I didn't practice, and it was kind of, life showed me that that was not my way, that was not
Oh,
my healing modality. But I had my son in 2014 when I graduated, and I thought, oh well, I'll take a year off or 2 years, and then, when my husband graduates and starts his practice, then I'll go back and do residency, and that was kind of the plan. But life very quickly showed me that actually I'm meant to teach, so I went to teach. And I taught, med school and high school at the same time, and I created a health class, and all the different things that I taught in that health class that I brought into um, high school information, which nobody ever talked about. A lot of it was that mind, body, spirit. And I just really, I think even before I started medical school, I made a Facebook page, and I think I still have it somewhere, but it said, I will not become a pill pushing. I can't remember what I wrote, but something like, I will not become like just another one of those pill pushing doctors, right? Because I believe in holistic health. I believe in the mind, body, spirit. Even though I didn't know anything about it at the time, or very little, I just knew that I needed to learn it. And I always said, you need to be in it to change it. And I recognize that a big part of my support to people, to healthcare, to education, is to be able to transform how we think of learning, how we think of health, and how we think of wellness, and what we really do, like the commitments that we have, the habits that we choose, even the way that we learn. It's so backwards. And watching my own son struggle through fourth grade, it is so challenging. Just last week, I went to see, we did a student-led conference, and he'd written in his book, what's the one thing that's really challenging for you? It's sitting still for so long. It's like, yeah, we're not meant to be 9 years old sitting in front of a board for hours and hours on end. It's just not human nature.
yeah.
So
Right.
it's, Matt, I have so many passions, so many things to talk about, Maria. We could go on forever.
I know.
Um,
Oh my goodness,
yeah,
I'm so
I
glad you.
yeah, I really, really appreciate you just bringing us back, and, sharing your experience of um, indigenous healing. And, like you said, Eastern medicine, it came from an indigenous and very ancestral place as well. And so I just want to remind anyone that's listening, if you have any judgments or any, you know, insecurities, questions, just that space of not being sure. I mean, all of these medicines are actually, they are evidence-based now. Science has gone to the place of
Yeah.
studying, whether it's, herbal medicines, whether it's, Eastern medicine, energy, all these things are being studied right now. And they're actually being, for those people that need evidence, are being shown that there is actually a lot of evidence behind it. So
Okay.
before anybody judges, because I know that there's going to be people on this podcast listening that come from the Western world,
Yeah.
you know, take a look into it. Be a little bit curious. You know, maybe experience it yourself before you judge it, because I think there's a lot that we learn that unfortunately, I mean, I always said when I was teaching medical school, I'm like, we don't even like we are ignorant at best about the spirit. We know nothing about it. And I had a conversation with actually my manicurist. She was a Jehovah's Witness, and she said, you know, I think it's really ignorant of doctors to be giving people blood, um, someone else's blood, because that blood contains the other person's soul. And that was the first moment that I actually stopped to think, like, is that true? Is that really what we're doing? I don't know. There's no study out there that said that. It's definitely not in my textbooks. But that really made me think about, you know, people's beliefs and their integrity. It's so important to honor and value what people believe in, and really to have an open mind about what we actually are doing in Western medicine, in Eastern medicine, in all the different ways that we support people to quote unquote live a better life, or live a healthier life, or a less diseased life, or less suffering, or, you know, however we want to wrap that up with a bow. Um, I think it's just really important to recognize that none of it by itself is actually the full picture. And I
Right.
think, yeah, I guess my takeaway from this is, and from everything, I mean, I've really recently been questioning, you know, neurolinguistic programming and hypnotherapy, and like I have this resistance about it because I don't know it.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to learn about it. I'm starting to study it. I'm potentially even open to experiencing it, because we can't know everything in one field. So I just really appreciate your openness and willingness to learn, and just this desire to, you know, be adventurous and keep going and keep expanding. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, there's just so much out there, right? And
Yeah.
my feeling is, well, let's just try the things that are least invasive.
Oh
The
yeah.
things that like if I can feel better taking a day off and walking in the sunshine, well, I think I'll do that. you
Yeah.
know? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just being aware of how many influences on us there are that we can take advantage of to feel that can assist us. We can
Yeah.
really expand our well-being and to focus on our well-being, because it's so
Mm,
important that we offer ourselves the opportunity to be our best so that we can be more, contribute more to the world.
that's
And
right.
yeah, and if we can explore different ways, and yeah, we need to be open, because so often people close themselves off just from some really irrational fear that they've just been told or carried from some earlier trauma, or really that it just stands in the way of their greater good, of their well-being.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, Maria, thank you so much for summarizing that so beautifully. And you know, one thing that came to me while you were sharing and just through this conversation is that, you know, in our careers, and those sort of 9 to 5 careers, not necessarily when you become an entrepreneur, a business person, but when you're working for someone, for a company, we have, you know, some companies have limited numbers of sick days, some companies have unlimited number of sick days, but not very many companies have a lot of personal days. You might get one personal day in the year. And when I think about prevention and something that you just said, it is so important, because even in this season of my life, I'm really recognizing when stress, when you know, the demands and the tasks get so much that I do need a personal day, but I've already used it this year. So I don't want to quote unquote lie and say that I'm sick, but I need this day in order to not get sick.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because that's not common sense and it's not commonplace, but I think it ought to be. Like, we really need to move the needle when it comes to workplace safety, and when it comes to prevention and healthcare, and you know, when we think about the way we think about our lives and work and how much time and energy we contribute to that space without taking care of ourselves, it's no wonder we have so much disease on our planet. We're all overstressed,
Yeah,
overworked,
it's
you
really,
know?
really true, and
Yeah.
getting much worse. I
Yes.
think Europe had better vacation days, and but they're
Mhm.
becoming more like the U.S. It's
Mhm.
we're really inhumane. It isn't doesn't support our having really relaxed and worthwhile lives where we can be all meant to be. It's
Mm.
draining, tiring, and stressful.
Mm. Let's end on a high note. What
Yeah,
would you love to share with our audience that's listening today? That's kind of motivational, inspirational. Maybe it's a tip or a trick or a hint or
yeah,
something, some sort of calling to get them to that place where self-priority is actually something that they are not only curious about, but willing to take the next step because then they can experience those moments of a full
right.
body yes.
Yeah, and also a life that is designed around their well-being. I mean, it's really possible. And
Mm,
yeah, so I think it is really key to have moments of stillness
mm,
and time away from clutter and the mind busyness so that these more profound truths can be heard. If there's one thing you got to do is just be still. Be
mm,
still and listen. Let the
mm.
Because
Yeah.
it's in that quiet moment that the truth really emerges, that yes really emerges of what we really long for. It
Mm,
isn't working so hard to buy the next thing, but it's
mm,
having a life where we feel good, where we have time for those we love, where we can
mm,
have joy and play and
mm,
relaxation and slow cooking and
mm, mm,
just all the things that matter, that lead to health, that lead to happiness, that lead to joy. And it's very possible, and it comes from giving ourselves the opportunity to hear our own inner yes.
mm, mm. Oh, Maria. Oh my goodness. Talk about tying it up with a bow. That was absolutely gorgeous. Thank you so, so much for being on the podcast. Thank you for saying yes to co-authoring this book so that we could meet. And yeah, now we're tied together forever. So we can find each other any moment. And I would absolutely love if you could share actually with our audience how they can get in touch with you if they would love to work with you, whether it's for acupuncture or for one of your retreats or online programs.
Yeah, well, my website is journeyforpurpose.com. And my email is actually, I have another website called healingandmore.com. And
Mhm.
my email is maria@healingandmore.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Maria. Thank you for being exactly who you are and trusting the slowing down and being a stand for what's possible when we prioritize our health and our wellness and our vitality. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you for you, and thank you
Mm,
for having me. I've just
mm.
cherished this time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel like we both gained like 5 years of life for this.
I
It's
know. I'm
so
so
good.
excited. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
oh, have a beautiful day, Maria. Thank
You
you.
too.
Take care.
Bye.